Good evening. Steve, I've been working on my assignment all weekend, consumed everything. Now I think I've finally wrapped my mind around it and have put together my understanding of the answer to your question. You talk about you and the staff wanting to improve engagement. You did some things with surveys and had discussions. And the teachers have indicated we're not satisfied. We want to improve in that area. How do we improve? How do we enhance student engagement? And then you ask us, the administrative group, the question, does Willingham support the belief that student engagement is important? And then you follow up with another question. If so, what recommendations do you have for my staff and myself to improve student engagement? Well, first of all, I'd like to say this. From what you've said and from reading the articles and watching the videos that you gave us to take a look at, plus Willingham's material and the material from others, I even did a Education Week search on student engagement. There are really two kinds of engagement. I think the most important engagement, or the bottom line engagement, is students' engagement with the material. Willingham's principle number 3, memory is the residue of thought. If they're not engaged, if they're not spending a considerable amount of time thinking about what we're trying to teach them, thinking about it in terms of meaning, they're not going to learn it. There's no way around it. It's the way the human brain is. Excuse me. So how do we do that? But there's another kind of engagement that we talked about, or you're talking about, that probably is important to get the students engaged with the material. And that is a relationship between the teacher and the students, a positive relationship where the students like the teacher. All right. We want kids to learn. We want them to think about the material. Well, there are 2 Willingham principles that I think speak to this engagement. One happens to be principle number 1. People are naturally curious, but they're not good thinkers. If conditions aren't right, they won't engage. They won't think about it. And when we walk by that classroom where the kids are doing everything except study the Civil War or the quadratic equation or whatever it is we're trying to teach, oftentimes it's because principle number 1 is not being paid attention to. Willingham said, if you want to engage kids, you've got to give them problems at a moderate level of difficulty. Every one of us, if they said to keep your administrative license, you're going to have to take a statistics class, we would hope that that statistics class would engage us with problems that we had a chance of solving. You want to make them way, way, way too hard? Going to turn us off. We're not going to try. You want to make it so easy that we're bored? we're not going to spend much time with it. So, Willingham's principle number 1, people are naturally curious, but they're not good thinkers. And that requires that the teacher pay attention to the level of difficulty. If they don't, we're not going to be engaged. The other Willingham principle I think that speaks to engagement is, as I said before, memory is the residue of thought. And Willingham said, when you ask students, is this person a good teacher? Doesn't matter if it's a kindergartner or somebody in a graduate program at Stanford. The students almost always get down to 2 qualities that the teacher has. Number 1, the teacher is likable. The kids like the teacher. They want to please the teacher. And they think the teacher likes them. They believe that. The second thing is, because if you only paid attention to that, liking me and being personable, you could be a country club manager and not teach anything. The second principle is the teacher organizes the material in such a way that it's possible to learn it. Those 2 things. Must have a relationship to be a good teacher with the students. And Steve, all of your articles and the videos we watched talk about that. They're saying, you bet, absolutely essential for student engagement and successful teaching. Willingham, with principle number 3, says the same thing. Look, read that chapter again. You'll see it in there. In fact, Willingham said, it's partly the teacher's style. They have, and I'm going to quote Willingham here. I've got the book. Turn to chapter 3. He says this. So if content won't do it, how about style? Students often refer to good teachers as those who make the stuff interesting. It's not that the teacher relates the material to the student interests. Rather, the teacher has a way of interacting with students that they find engaging. And then he goes on to talk about the different styles that kids find engaging. The comedian, the den mother, the storyteller, the showman. Not saying that that's the only way. You have to be one of those, in one of those 4 categories. But he's saying there's something about that teacher that engages kids in a constructive relationship. Absolutely essential. So those are the main points that I have. I do believe student engagement is absolutely essential, as I said before. You can't learn what you don't think about. And I think that's the kind of engagement most educational journals and articles are talking about. The amount of time that Tom Ames spends engaged thinking about the material. But for that to happen, I need to have a couple of things in place. One, I have to have a reasonable chance of learning the material, which means it has to be at the appropriate level of difficulty, moderate level of difficulty. Teacher needs to pay attention to that. And number 2, I need to have a good feeling about this teacher. I am going to work hard for people who I think like me and who I like. I'm not going to work hard for somebody who dislikes Tom Ames or doesn't think Tom Ames can learn or doesn't really care if Tom Ames ever succeeds. I'll work really hard for people who I think have an interest in my success. And that's one of the reasons why I've enjoyed Parker's Prairie. I work for 7 school board members who really demonstrate that. And I think you feel that too. That appreciation, the caring, the wanting you to succeed. No different for kids. Well, I've rambled on for 10 minutes, and that's way too long. But yes, Steve Willingham speaks to your staff and has something to say about how they can improve student engagement. Talk to you later. Thanks.